Your kids at every age are the best deal makers. Like, Donald Trump has nothing on your children. They will make the best deal that fits out for what they want if you let them. At every age. How many know that's the truth? Doesn't matter. I mean, they're amazing at that. So, we're going to talk about discipline. We talked about training, and here's the thing. All this moral reason why stuff, it's all about training them to be powerful people that exercise their freedom of choice in a right way, correct? So, the purpose is because we want them to have right relationship with God, with us, with the rest of the family, and ultimately with the world. Can I get an amen? If they have the right relationship with the world, then they can influence the world. And we ought to be raising influencers that are powerful, exercising the greatest freedom we have in the most righteous way. So, in order to do that, correction and discipline is a necessary component. But here's what correction and discipline is. It's a way to help them realize that though they have freedom of choice and I'm not going to manipulate your behavior, because correction and discipline isn't manipulating their behavior, it's to help them understand that their choices have rewards and have consequences. Right? Choose you this day whom you will serve, God said, right? And he also said this, hey, today I set before you blessing and cursing, life and death. You choose. If you choose life, it's going to be well with you. If you don't, here's going to be the consequences. Isn't that right? So he just provided for us a great model in our parenting and in our discipline. So you're correcting their behavior is not to manipulate them, but again, to introduce the concept of choices that are seed sown that reap a harvest. You are today where you are, not because it was the sovereign will of God for your life, but because you made choices. And this is where you are. I don't get any amens there. Okay, thank you. So let's just provide some scriptures here. And Proverbs 22:15 says this, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. How many of you know that's the truth? Why? Because of the sin nature. Just because of the sin nature. The rod of correction will drive it far from him. Are you saying we got to spank every kid? That is a way of discipline. It is not the only way to discipline. And the rod of correction just means correction, not necessarily you got to beat them every time. Matter of fact, you shouldn't beat them ever. I say that word loosely, right? Everybody hear my heart on that? Okay. Proverbs 13:24. He who spares his rod, or that correction, hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. Woo! What great scriptural principles when it comes to discipline. Proverbs 23:13 and 14. Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. If you do it the right way. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell. My parents believe that scripture. I'm telling you, they believe that scripture. I believe that scripture. Not in the way the world thinks about it. Not in the way that's traditionally thought about it. Okay? It's really quiet in here. So here's the deal. There's practicalities for discipline that are different at every age. Different at every age. And I've already laid the foundation that rebellion for 2 and rebellion at 15 is the same spirit, but correcting it and dealing with that hard issue at 2 is, I know you're going to think, I just can't do it. They throw these 10, this happens and that happens. If you can't do it now, forget about it at 15. Because then they have a strongly developed will, everything's already in process, and it's not impossible. It just takes a whole lot more prayer, fasting, work, love, etc. You got it? Okay. So, and let me just say this. Rebellion at 15 months and 20 months and 2 years old is never cute. So what oftentimes is one of the first words that children learn?
No.
No. That's not funny. No, listen to me. I'm talking about training. Like, from my heart, I'm really telling you this. No is never funny. And no is not cute. If they're telling their parents or an adult. No. In context of receiving instruction, no. Right? And if it becomes cute at 2, at 8, it ain't cute anymore, right? So you don't have to let it happen. Y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy, aren't you? I know. I'm serious. It's just a principle. I'm going to do. If you allow it, hey, that's your choice. I'll help you as much as I can, right? I'm presenting a different way of thinking. Okay? That's all. How do you discipline at toddler age, at 15 months, right? Well, one of the ways we started training, and we told you, is if we didn't want their hands up, we didn't have to spank their hands at 15 when they brought them up. We just didn't give them food at 15 months. Yeah, 15. Put your hands under the table. We're not giving you food. Thank you. Right? What's the discipline? Well, it's natural. It's really kind of natural consequences. They're going to learn that, if my hands are up here, I'm not going to get a bite in my mouth. But if my hands are down here, I'm going to get a bite, and everybody's going to be happy. And for sure, if they're throwing a tantrum, they're not going to get it, because that's not a proper form of communication. Right? Okay, so I'm just throwing out some things. So I think...
Hold on a minute.
Yep, thank you.
When they are all of a sudden having like a little tantrum because you're not letting them have food or not letting them do those moments, don't sit there and try to argue with a 10-month-old or...
Any of them. Mm-hmm.
Or any of them, but just maybe get up, walk away for a minute, come back. Just let them sit there. It's not going to hurt them for a few minutes.
Yep. So I think in the toddler years, there are multiple things that are appropriate. Here's the deal. Listen, the discipline has to fit the behavior. Okay? The discipline has to fit the behavior. Or the punishment has to fit the crime. Okay? So, according to what that is. So for us, at the toddler years, we did not child-proof our home. Don't look at me like I'm strange. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It's not that I didn't put little things in the receptacles. I did that because I didn't, right? That could be really dangerous the first time. We didn't take all the fancy things off the coffee table. Things were still within their reach. They could actually have the opportunity to break something. Because if I child-proofed my home, here's why for us we didn't do it. We were going to be in other people's homes that may not be child-proofed. And I didn't want the other people to have to child-proof their home because those crazy Deaton kids were coming over. Because that doesn't show honor to them. And the Ryan Deaton family honors other people. So we began it in the home that we didn't child-proof, but they learned what they could touch and what they couldn't touch. How? A strong no. And if they touched it, what punishment might fit the crime? You popped your child's hand? Yes, I did. How hard? Enough so that they realized there was a consequence, right? Now, if they kept touching it, did I keep popping their hand? No. What would we do?
I would literally remove them from the situation. Like, you're not going to just let them keep going. Just take them, move them over to a toy, to a different situation, distract them from that object at that moment. Yep.
So there are multiple things. Some of them are natural consequences. So if you tell a kid to... Now we're getting serious. So, if you tell a child not to run in the house and they're running in, or whatever, I'm just using it as an example. I'm not saying never run in the house or whatever. But for instance, if you tell them not to run in the house, they run in the house, they fall down and get hurt. How many of you know you really don't have to bring any consequences to them because there are natural consequences? And then you can say, see, that's why I told you not to run in the house, because that happens. They've had natural consequences. So that they learn that choices have rewards or consequences. Choices are seeds that are sown that produce a harvest, one way or the other. What kind of harvest do you want your kids to have? Right? So toddler years, actually, it is okay to introduce spanking. When they're wearing a diaper even, sometimes it's just the sound that has enough to get their attention. I would encourage you, other than maybe a pop on the hand, not to use your hand other places. Right?
Yeah, like I started off, I know you just saw that big boardwalk up, but we
I'll
started off,
explain this in a minute. Don't freak out.
like just a simple wooden spoon on the diaper gets the attention. So that's kind of where we started.
So it is okay to introduce spanking in toddlers. Somebody said weapons. Thank you, Kyle. Now, I'm going to talk about the instrument you use. Let me just go ahead and talk about the instrument since I'm holding it. Is this scary? I mean, this says a lot without having to do anything sometimes, right? However, if you have it and you threaten with it and don't do anything with it, that's stupid. I'm just saying. So this isn't the exact board that we use because we threw ours away a few years ago and we haven't had to use it in a long time. Matter of fact, we were talking, when was the last time we had to spank one of our kids? I honestly don't even remember. It's been so long. Okay? Because if you train them young, it gets easier when they're older. If you parent within the funnel. I'm here to tell you there's hope. It is actually possible, all right? So this is very similar to the board we use, though it is not the exact one. It is very similar. Why did we use this one? Because it looks like it would cause the most damage, but it will cause the least damage because God made our backsides very unique in that it's padded, some more than others, right? And the more territory you cover on the backside, the less likely it is to leave marks. That's why we use an instrument like this. So what we found, like my mom always used a wooden spoon on us, like the dreaded wooden spoon when I was growing up. Or I remember one time my mom sent me to get an instrument to use for my own punishment. That was bad, dude. You may have to get your own thing, like... So I thought I was going to be smart. I was clueless. I know I was younger than 7 because I know where we were living. Like it's indelibly printed on my brain. I know we were living in Ohio. We moved from there before I was 7. We were in Ohio. My mom sent me to get a belt, and I went into my closet to find, to the closet to find a belt. And I'm going to get the one that hurts the least. So at 6, which one do you think hurts the least? The smallest one. I came out with this leather strap about that wide. So I knew I was in trouble because I handed it to my mom and she went, exactly like that. And I said, I'll go get another one. She goes, no, that'll work just fine. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I'm not exaggerating that one bit. I got you now, kid. You're dumb. So the thing with spanking is that we're not trying to injure them. We don't want to hurt them. But sometimes means have to be taken to let them know that choices they make have consequences that could be dire, right? So we introduce spanking young, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And if you do it when you're all mad and angry, that's probably not a good time to do it. And the purpose is because you want to restore relationship. You want to take care of the problem, right? And boy, everybody's looking at me. Let me just say, we were very careful. I would always put my hand on the small of their back so that if I missed the meat, it didn't injure them, it hurt me. So I would put my hand on the small of their back and I'd make them bend over so that the fatty part was sticking out. Because I'm not trying to injure them. I'm bringing correction. Are you hearing me? I'm not beating them. My kids are kind of normal as you can come when this is your dad, right? So this is about as normal as it can be. Go ahead.
I wanted to say this, and I know I need to make
moving.
sure he keeps moving, but sometimes you have more a stronger-willed child, and one of ours was that way. And when it came to spanking them, I literally would have to, because you do want to get their backside, you got to be in control. And I know this sounds funny, but I would literally have to put them between my legs here, wrap this leg around them, pin them down this way so I knew I got their butt, or they would squirm and turn and you're going to get something that would really hurt.
Yep.
And unfortunately, sometimes that happened.
So when they move to older, elementary age, when they get older, you can start introducing things like loss of privileges, take away the PlayStation, take away stuff. Man, I'm telling you what, nowadays that stuff sometimes has more effect than does spanking. Spanking is not the only discipline. If that's your only one, there's a problem. Okay, I know I spent time on it because it's okay to do it the right way. And if you report me to the law, oh well, you do. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. I still believe in it. So loss of privileges, grounding as they get older, elementary school, taking toys away, taking things away. It's a way to let them know that there's consequences, right? And then teenage years, it doesn't get harder. There's certain things they want to do, and you don't have to let them do it. Oh, but you're the parent, right? You're more powerful than they are. Look at yourself in the mirror. I'm more powerful than my teenager is, right? Unless you want them to be more powerful. That's your choice. Take privileges away. You can ground them. But include them in part of it. So here's the thing that we learned young that we honestly were not the best at always practicing. So if you've asked your kids to do certain things and that they want to go do something, you can ask them this: do you have the freedom to do that? What does that question mean? It means, did you do what was expected of you so that you can enjoy the privilege? Because every privilege has responsibility prior to it, right? Because why? In the teenage years, you're moving from total instruction and restriction to freedom, which means you're moving more into a coaching role. You're helping them now make decisions, right? So you're helping them make decisions when you ask the question, do you have the freedom to do that? Which means, okay, have I behaved the way I'm supposed to behave? Have I taken care of the things I'm supposed to take care of so they have the freedom to do what I really want to do? And if not, then guess what? They have the natural consequence that they can't go do what they're supposed to do. Does that make sense? Some of these things are harder if you haven't started with some of these things at the beginning. I realize that, especially as a teenager. So what do you do? Up until now, but from now on, discussion with your kids. I'm sorry, things might be uncomfortable for our household for the next matter of months until we all understand that our family is going to exist in a new way together. Okay? I'm sorry, but this is the way it's going to be for us. Here's why. Because this is what God wants the family to look like, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. Can we all work together on this? I know you're not going to get a bunch of amens, and yes, we're going to do it, but you're letting them know there's a change.
One thing, too, that is really helpful is to kind of know the makeup of your child. Temperament-wise, I know not everyone probably understands that, but you have, choleric, sanguine, melancholy, phlegmatic. Did I say all those? Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand some of that, we'd be happy to tell you some books or different things that you can read. For us, I found that to be very helpful because with 3 kids, they were all very different. You're going to have some that, like one of ours is very choleric and very strong-willed. So therefore, if we got angry, if they witnessed the anger and us getting all frustrated, for them, it was like, hey, I'm winning. This is great. Just see how mad we can make you. And it was not helpful. So we'd find in those situations, again, not always very successful at this, walk away, take a breath, let them know they're going to go sit in their room or sit somewhere, I'll be back. Then you also have those that tend to be, they're always wanting to please you as a parent, or just please people. They're very easily, like the minute they've done something wrong, they tell you before you even know. And so you kind of have to be careful with that too, and know that, discipline for one child may be very different than discipline for another child, because you don't want to break who they are. You just want to help to train them, mold them. So it's very important that you know kind of how they function.
Yeah. Let me just say some things you need to avoid at every age: threatening and repeating. If you don't do this, I'm going to. If you don't do it, if you don't do it. The other thing is, like, at a young age, counting to 3. 1, 1.5, 2. If I get to 3, you're going to be in trouble. 3. Why? Because that gets away from first-time obedience, right? Not meaning what you say. If you don't do such and such, I'm going to rip your arm off and beat you with the bloody end of it. You probably don't mean that. Like, we've all said crazy things. Mean what you say. And just remember, it's never too late to start. If you've been doing it wrong, have the conversations, make the changes. Let me give you some resources, and then we're going to open up the question and answer, and I'll explain this question and answer time. There's a website, GFI, it's for Growing Families International, gfi.org. They have several different parenting resources according to the age of your child. I would recommend them. I'm not saying I agree with everything in there, but there is a lot of good material There's one that I think they call it, I'm not sure if they call it preparation for parenting. That's what they did back before Allison was born. And amazing stuff to prepare you for babies, for newborns, how you set a schedule so that they're sleeping 8 hours a night by 8 weeks old. It's a wonderful thing. Sleep's a wonderful thing, right? It actually works. Things so that it talks to you about how to teach them to eat properly, a lot of those things, and how to sign language and how you can, because they can sign way before they can speak. So our kids knew how to say more if they wanted more food. They were saying please. They were saying thank you. They were saying juice so that we'd know what they want or eat, and all kinds of things at a young age because they learned to communicate, and we wanted to teach them there's a right way to communicate and a wrong way to communicate. And it helped us, when we were out. Those kind of things from that website. There's a book, Danny Silk is the author, called Loving Your Kids on Purpose. Regardless of the age of your kids, that's a great book to read. Again, I'm not saying I agree with 100% of everything that's in there, but there are a lot of great principles that I would encourage you to grab onto, okay? Now, this question and answer period, we're going to do our best to maybe cover some of the questions that we haven't gotten to. But what we have up here is our youngest, I'm backwards, our youngest Sarah, she's 16. Our oldest Allison, she's 20. We're going to open up questions for either Jennifer or me, or you can ask our daughters any question that you want to ask them at all about our family or about anything. We just thought it'd be interesting to open it up beyond just us to maybe how they responded or reacted to some of those things. If you want to ask them any question, they can say whatever they want to say about that.
Is it mean or wrong to not allow your child to do something because of misbehavior, but the other family members are still able to? Example, ground your child from pool, TV, etc., but the remainder of the family is using it. Or should everyone wait until the child is no longer grounded to use these things?
Don't ground your whole family for what one person did wrong.
You don't want your children to, okay, strong word here, but hate you because the other child is grounded. Yeah. No, I think you let it, if you ground them, if they have not been doing what you've asked of them, they're grounded. And to me, if the whole family's not involved, where was the punishment for them? So absolutely, they've got to sit out and watch what the rest of the family's doing. They'll think twice next time, hopefully.
How do you explain different disciplines? Because if our kids have different personalities and they all get one consequence, and one gets one consequence and the other gets another, and they fight you on it and the topic of fairness, why does one child get disciplined one way, the other gets disciplined another? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to figure out the context for the question and be careful to answer it in context. So that's why I'm thinking for a minute. So if two kids do the same thing, I would encourage you to punish them in the same way. If it happens at the same time, right? Now, if the offense is different, again, you're punishing them according to, or correcting, disciplining them according to the offense, right? And then according to their response. I mean, there are so many factors that it's hard to say. Here's the thing. Fairness ought to be out the window, because this is one thing my mom taught. If you've been around Life Church, you've probably heard this numerous times. Life's not fair. The sooner you learn it, the better off you are. Because if your kids think that life is fair, they're going to be highly disappointed when we get out in the real world where nothing is fair. That's not to say it shouldn't be just in your home. Like, there should be justice, right? But there is no such thing as fair. God doesn't deal with all of us the exact same.
Yeah.
I mean, not everything happens to each one of us exactly the same anyway. So don't worry about having to be fair. You don't have to be fair. You have to be just, which means dealing with every situation according to the way it happened and in the context of that, right? So I think that's what I would say.
That's good.
Why spank instead of take something away? Why turn to violence? How will they not learn to hit others? Specifically speaking to toddler age.
Because
first of all, the Bible tells us to use a rod, spare the rod, spoil your child. Mm-hmm. So
quite that way, but
I know. But the facts are, it's not, I think a lot of it is how you approach it, how you do it. Again, that's why I strongly believe use their bottom. If they're young enough as a toddler, their hand. I think the kids are smart enough to know that that's not how you go and just slap somebody else for no reason. Maybe you have a better way to.
Because it's wrapped in moral training of how we treat others, why we treat others this way, why you're getting a spanking. Like, why did we do this? Here's what your behavior was. Here's what the result is. So there is context to everything, okay? So let's keep everything in context. So let me go a macro level for a minute. That's the micro. Let me go macro. We have an issue with violence in the earth today. Yes. Right? So all right, is the problem violence in media? Is the problem violence here? Is the problem violence there? My supposition is that the problem isn't the violence in media. The problem is the training in the home, because you're not going to find a more violent book than the Bible. Just a thought. So everything we're talking about has a larger context, including discipline, spanking, etc. So you can't say, because you're spanking your kid, they're going to learn to hit somebody else. Why? Because there's a context that spanking is happening in that's very much different than the context of them hitting somebody else. Okay? So for example, this is a great example. My dad used to play, when he used to watch Allison when we had worship team rehearsal, okay, when she was a baby. So one of the ways my dad showed love was he would pretend bite on her cheek. Well, Allison was 20 and a half months old when Caleb was born,
Yeah,
right?
20 months.
So Allison was loving on Sarah the way Papa loved on her and bit her cheek and left marks.
Actually, it was Caleb.
It was Caleb. Okay, so so she would have been 3.5 by then or something.
No, it was.
Oh, Caleb, that's right, not Sarah, because Caleb's the inner one. I'm sorry, I'm not confused.
She's
Keep me
younger.
straight, hon, that's why I'm married to you. So my point is, so then we tell Papa you can't love on them that way because they're learning to bite people. It's context, right? So the whole thing of I didn't get violent with people and I was spanked. My kids didn't get violent with people and they were spanked because there's a greater context. Does that make sense?
Because, you're not randomly just
Right,
spanking.
it's not random and it's not in anger. It's with purpose to restore relationship and to train the heart, and with love, and then a prayer and a repentance afterwards to make it right. Okay.
There's one more follow-up to that, and then Allison, I got a question for you, just to prepare you. Just to follow, well, how do you handle when they hit you back?
How do we handle when they hit us back?
Is it a natural thing for kids to want to do that? Why? Why is it a natural thing? Because it's human nature. It's a rebellion. So what do? You address it. You address it. No, we don't hit mommy and daddy. We don't hit people. Why did you hit me? I was not hitting you. I was spanking you to correct behavior because I want you to do what the Bible says. Children, obey parents in the Lord, for this is right. And if you can't obey me, you can't obey God. We'll have those discussions, right? Context. It goes back to context. Yep.
Allison,
Here we go.
being the oldest, did you feel like your siblings got away with things you received discipline for?
Yes, all the time.
Why? I mean, what did that look like? I'm not challenging you. It's the truth. Absolutely. Absolutely. She got punished for things the other kids didn't. Here's why. We were learning as parents. And we were way too hard on her. And we were still performance oriented when she was really young. And by the time Caleb got a little bit older, we were learning, we were coming out of things. So absolutely, we were way harder on her. Big mistake we made, but we were learning. We've had these conversations.
Allison, again, do you see the foundation set in your family now influences your choices as a young adult? And if so, do you have any example where maybe you acted counter to the culture around you because of your family culture?
Yeah, for sure. Even like when it comes to what movies I watch, what music I listen to, I'm 20 and I still go back to like what they taught us about that.
At what age should we see first-time obedience? Our son is 15 months old, and when it comes to climbing on top of chairs or not opening cabinets, we almost always have to remove him from the area because a hand spank won't work, or even saying no. And then, question part B, how many spankings, 1, 2, or 3, do you feel is appropriate? Or more?
If I understood this correctly, as far as like feeling like you're constantly having to repeat, again, I think that's where moving them to maybe at 15 months old, I'd put them in, I don't know if I had like a play yard that we put them in. I would put them in there, maybe with a few toys, not a few toys, because you don't want to sit there and spank them 15 times. I mean, I would not want to keep spanking them.
Yeah.
I would find another way to remove them from the situation.
Parent in the funnel. They can't handle the freedom of the whole house at 15 months old. Get a play yard. Let them know they have freedom in this area, right? That's one way you can do it. That way, you're not having to worry about it. What if they scream? Let them.
I promise eventually they'll stop screaming.
They'll stop. Yeah, right? So, and when should you expect it? It's something you're always working towards. At 15 months, what are you doing? I'm working towards it. If I'm not getting it, do I get frustrated? I just keep working for it because the goal is first-time obedience, okay? So every day I'm working towards it. That's my effort.
And I want to say this with first-time obedience. The facts are, even at 15, 16, they're still, you know what I mean? You might say, don't
Still
give me
working
that.
towards it.
Yeah, so it's always a process. It's not like they ever arrive and never challenge you again, or so it's just always a process.
How do you handle children bickering and fighting between each other and teasing each other?
Yeah, we haven't been the best at that. I'm going to say we don't have it all together. How should you do it? How could you do it? What are we working towards? So, where do we learn conflict resolution? In the home. So, where do kids learn conflict resolution? Or how to appropriately engage in conflict? Did you know it is actually appropriate to engage in conflict, and there's a way to do it, a way not to do it? Well, we usually learn it from our parents, and we'll carry that into other relationships. I'm not saying it's always this way, it's not. Is the way your kids are handling conflict and bickering with one another reflective of the way you and your spouse do? Sometimes painfully we have to say, yes, it is. Right? How do you handle it? Well, you can yell and scream, you can separate them, or you can sit down and have the discussion. This is how we handle it. And we've done all of the above. Yelled and screamed, separated them, grounded them. All right, this is how we do it. There's no key, right? You just have to keep working at it. You have to think, teaching them how to choose. We got to teach conflict resolution. What's the best way to do it in this scenario?
There were times, like I can remember some times, like even in the pool, and they would start going at it, and I would just kind of let them go at it.
Yeah, let them figure it
Kind of
out.
keep an eye to make sure they're not fixed to kill each other in the process, but just kind of let them bust it out for a little while, and sometimes it resolved itself. Sometimes you had to step in and say, okay, that's enough.
Sarah, what are the rules for dating in your household?
Well, we can date at like 17, but they prefer us just to wait until we find someone we feel like we could marry, or someone that like it'd be a mature relationship in, and not just like date to have fun, like not just date to date or because everyone else is doing it, but just to wait until we find someone that we feel like we could actually see ourselves marrying. Yeah.
Allison, what is your perception of the rules of dating in the Ryan Deaton household?
I would say Sarah explained it very well.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Go
can
ahead.
I ask a follow-up question to them? So,
I won't know how to send that follow-up question back to them, though. Are you saying to your
I'll
daughters?
just ask them. A follow-up question, girls. And be honest. I mean, I know we've had this conversation, so I can ask it boldly. I pretty much know what you're going to say. But have we forced that on you? No.
No.
Is it something, is that the way you want to do it?
Yeah.
Why?
Just 'cause.
No, you know why.
Why, like,
Why?
Why are you okay with that?
I'm okay with not dating?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I always said, like, I saw how my friends did it when I was younger, and I just didn't see the point in dating. So I was okay with just not doing it, I guess.
Both Sarah and Allison, have you ever felt your parents were too strict and had desires to do your own thing?
Yes.
You can answer that. I don't know.
It's a simple.
I was going to say, y'all can be
That's a pretty
honest.
closed question.
No, but
Have you ever?
yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the moment, I'm always like, this is ridiculous. They're too strict. But once I like calm down, I'm like, I see like why they did it, and I never like after that, I'm never like, this is ridiculous. After the fact of getting in trouble, though.
Allison?
Yeah, I agree with Sarah.
Are you sure? Okay.
I will tell you this, they definitely fought it sometimes.
Some with strong wills more than others. Yeah.
Some more than others.
Which one of you is the most strong-willed? She pointed. She raised her hand first. Though. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
To both Allison and Sarah, I guess Allison first. How did your dad model love to you and provide security in yourself as a girl or young woman?
Just your opinion.
I would say he always would come up and hug us, tell us he loved us. So there was never like a doubt that. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say the same thing. Like, I don't know. He just always loved on us and stuff, so. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. There's no right or wrong. I know there's no right or wrong, but I don't know what else to say.
Allison and Sarah, how has your parents' marriage affected your hearts towards dating, love, marriage?
Whew, those are big questions, man. I didn't expect some of these.
I was expecting simple questions.
So, what do you think?
Allie, you're the oldest.
You don't know how to answer it? That's a pretty deep question to process, isn't it? So let me just say, when it comes to establishing their security as a father, I could have been a whole lot better towards my girls, candidly, and we've had this discussion recently, like within the last couple months. And I probably did it better for my son than I did for them. So we're still working on that one, right? And I told you we were going to be honest. Is that okay? I am by nature probably within my home. I'm a hugger, so I love to hug my family. Always been good about that. Probably pretty good at affirming them, but I think there's some other things that we've talked about as a family that I wasn't as good at, that I'm still time to correct it, right? So I can always start today. So, right, exactly. So that's what I'm working on. And I don't think they're too damaged anyway. I think they're pretty good. They're making good decisions, and we're always working on that, right? So, and as far as our relationship, I don't know, man. I'm not sure if that's a easy one to answer for them.
Well, let me say this, and I mean, the girls can say yes or no about this, but I think we've not like pretended like we didn't argue in front of them. You know, the facts are there were times
We've argued in front of them. We've
argued, not always done it like
The right
it
way.
might be very good. Get very frustrated, might get silent for a little while. You know, they would see the bickering. So, you know, part of me for that, I didn't want us to always pretend we didn't, because I wanted them to be able to see that we're going to stick together regardless. Like, I may be very upset with you right now, but I'm not leaving him. He's not leaving me. We're going to make this work because we are different, but we know we're together.
And I have had to, numerous occasions, go to my kids and say, will you forgive me for the way I talked to your mother? Because I didn't set the example on how you should honor her. Would you please forgive me? So I have had to do that numerous times because I didn't set the good example and we didn't show them good conflict resolution. And it is what it is. I was wrong and I messed up, and I might as well admit it, because that's the best way we can establish a good foundation for them going forward. So is it true that I often apologize and repented to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarah and Allison, did either of you ever struggle, or Sarah may still, do you ever still struggle feeling left out when you're not allowed to do things like dating or going to parties, etc.?
Not really, honestly. Like
Have we ever
Allie
kept you
said-
from going to a party?
No, I never wanted to go to a party. Like those type of parties, if that's what they're talking about. Well, no, I think what helps too is I'm like not in school. So if I was in school, maybe it'd be a little different. Like I'd see people dating more and going to parties, but like my friends don't really date either. So that kind of helps. But also like Allie, I've seen like even her friends, and then like some friends I have now that have like dated, and I've seen like the heartache in it, and I'm like, it's not really worth it. So I don't feel left out at that at all. I actually, even if they would have let me date it, I feel like I probably still wouldn't have. I don't want to.
Who has the final say in the home if you can't come to an agreement, husband or wife, and does the husband have the ability to overrule?
I don't know that we necessarily, because yes, that does happen, that we very much might disagree on a topic. Usually it's just a conversation between us. We might even have to go back to the kids and say, okay, we've talked this out and here's what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, am I always great at this? No. But at the end of the day, my opinion is he is the one that has to answer. And so therefore, I need to answer to the fact to letting him be the man of the house and being the final say sometimes. Because we, again, don't always agree.
Yeah, so there's some decisions we made a number of years ago with some things we could have done financially. And I thought A was the best course. She thought B was the best course. And she really questioned me. And I said, well, I really think A, and I've got counsel, and this is what I think we should do. She said, well, I think we should do B. She goes, but at the end of the day, you're going to make the decision, and I trust you because, and basically she said, because according to Scripture, you're the leader of the home. So I didn't make that decision as the leader of the home apart from discussion, but because we didn't come to agreement, she said, you make the decision. I made decision A. It ended up being the wrong decision. How many husbands can identify with that? Right? So what did I say? I was wrong. Admit that. I'm sorry, I should have listened to you. Next time, guess what? I listen to her better. The thing with us is we really usually are able to talk it out and come to some kind of agreement. So we've never had to say, I'm the man of... And do you know that Jesus, as the husband of the church, never has to say, I'm the Lord of your life? Right? So if we ever have to say, well, I'm the man of this house and I'm going to do it this way, yeah, you're probably not loving like Jesus would, or you wouldn't have to get there.
If you haven't been parenting in the funnel and have allowed more freedoms than restriction, since you say it's never too late, can you get back to the funnel without creating anger and confusion in your child?
Maybe not, but it's worth it. Like, have the discussion. It might be constant discussions. Here's the deal. It might be a whole lot more work now, but you still can reap the rewards later if you go ahead and take that course of action.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
No,
That's
I
a
agree.
simple answer.
Allison, do you ever feel like you missed out on any experiences or things that you think maybe I would have experienced had I not been homeschooled or under the wing of the way you were raised?
No? Yeah. And let me just say, homeschooling for us, up to a few years ago, was literally a yearly discussion and prayer. God, what do you want? Are we going to homeschool in this next year or not? And there were times and seasons where the kids would say, yeah, let's really do this. And we just said, look, we're going to pray about it. And at the end of the day, none of us have a choice. We're going to see what God says about it. And that's what we're going to do. So for us, it was really a yearly thing until about a few years ago we realized, hey, we might as well just see this thing on out. I think for us, seeing this thing on out is the thing. And again, we're not promoting that it is the way to go. It's what's right for your family. You do it. And it's work both ways.
And I want to say this. I know that question was asked directly for Allison. I remember there were being a few times they would think, well, you know, should I have gone to prom? Would that have been nice? It might be like a slight discussion, but I never heard comments like there wasn't tears, there wasn't frustration they never got to do anything. So.
And if I'm not, well, never mind. Didn't one of them have the opportunity to go and? Yeah. So Allison had the opportunity to go, and we let her make that decision. Like, we didn't say you can't go. She made that decision and ended up deciding not to, right? So.
Multiple questions on this particular topic. How do you address allowing or not allowing smartphones? My kids are embarrassed because they say they're the only ones at their schools, middle and elementary, with a flip phone with no internet access. But I am very sensitive about what my kids are exposed to on the internet. How do you feel about this? Quite a few questions came in on that topic.
Yeah. How do we feel about it? So I don't remember what age we let our kids get a phone, period. You know, every family's different, and you have to parent according to the bent of your kid and what the issues are. There are a lot of safety features that you can have your carrier put on those. I don't really personally don't see the point in an elementary kid having a smartphone. And I'm really concerned when I see parents parenting by smartphones. So like, that's your way to entertain your kid and way to make it easier on you when you're places is to put a smartphone or iPad in front of them. That really just concerns me. There might be a different way for you to do that. And I would just introduce that there were kids that were fine without those, right? When they were young. I think it's just an individual. I'm not going to say what you should do. It's an individual choice. I think there are definite perils of letting them have that too soon. And if you parent within the funnel, it's sure a whole lot easier to give them that freedom later. My thoughts are that elementary school is way too young to have all of that information at your fingertips, I would think. My kids are past that age. I don't know. They all have smartphones.
Well, and I want to say this. Even, honestly, okay, Allison, Sarah, or Caleb, they're 18, 20. We're not doing this anymore. Like Ryan will still, or I will still occasionally ask Caleb, like, what are you watching? Like, are you guarding yourself, protecting? Because you do have the internet access on your phone. I don't think there's ever a time that you do not ask your kids and just be a part of their life. My kids knew from the time they had smartphones, at any point, I could pick up your phone and look at it. I could see what was happening. If you had a problem with that, too bad, too sad.
You don't get a phone.
Sarah's 16. She still knows. At any point, like, you can have a password on your phone, but I better know what it is. And if for some reason you change it and I don't know, then we have a problem. Not because I don't trust them. I would always say it's not because I don't trust you. I don't trust the enemy. You know, there is something that's always fighting against our kids pursuing the call of God on their life. You know, that protection, too many things out there. So it was never about trusting them. Now, if your kids have given you a reason not to trust them, you got to think that through, and they have to understand trust has to be built. But we more approached it, because I can honestly say they never ever gave us a reason not to trust them, but I wanted to protect them, and they had to know that that was going to happen.
The question is in regards to the sign. As your children learn to manage freedom, how much did or do you intervene to help them solve their problems for them? Relational problems with people their age, problems with leaders at church, etc.
Natural consequences. That if you always bail them out, the day might come when you're having to put money to a bail bondsman to bail them out. I'm just saying. Right? Let them feel it. It's okay. They'll live. They'll make it. Let them feel the consequences of forgetting. You've got to train them to responsibility. There were some things that were said. You cannot solve all your kids' problems for them. You have to train them how to solve problems. Walk them through the process. When one of our kids was younger, they had clashes with another individual. Well, when they were younger, guess what we did? We would sit down and coach them through it, and if necessary, go with them as they had that confrontation/conflict resolution, so that they were empowered to do it on their own. But we just don't solve it for them. We didn't go to the parents and say, hey, there's a problem with your kid and they need to fix it. No, you go to the kid. Why? Because that's the scriptural way. When you have a problem with somebody, you go one-on-one, and then if you can't handle it, you keep going until you get the problem solved, right? So think training. How is what I'm doing now going to empower them to solve this same problem when it's much bigger when they're older? How many of you know our problems don't really change? It's just the context of them do. It's the same issues as we grow, and it's from young to old. And what we do now trains them how to handle it when the context and the consequence is way bigger.
There's a lot of questions that all kind of have the same, I've had a ton of questions that have kind of the same root, and the root of all these questions are basically disagreements between spouses and how they raise, how they respond to situations. So instead of addressing all these individually, can you just speak to spouses who don't see discipline the same way? They don't see responding in the same time fashion, just the root of disagreement and how to raise your children.
Again, I feel like I'm making this kind of simple in the aspect of you're going to have to come to an agreement. Like, you need to sit down with each other, talk it through, find that common ground to address the situations. It goes back to the fact that each parent, you were raised differently, and you've got to find that kind of meeting in the middle of how you want it done. Or maybe neither one of you were given a lot of attention, and so you're finding that it's easier to give them a lot of freedom. Just come to the place with each other that you can admit that, okay, your way may not be the totally right way, but you're going to see eye to eye and stick with each other in that discipline, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to add to that it's, again, what lies in the balance is way too huge and important not to solve and come to a resolution of your disagreement. Right? It's the destiny of our kids that is in the balance. It's that picture we had that we started the day off with that we're working towards that is in the balance. It's so important. You can't afford to sit in something that is unresolved that is that important to the foundation of your family. So go to whatever lengths are necessary and get whatever counsel, godly counsel you need to seek it out until you guys can sit down and stop the either or discussion and say it might not be either this or that, it might be something new that we haven't even thought of. Because the chances are one might be doing everything they know to do and the other might be doing everything they know to do, but just because you're doing everything you know to do doesn't mean you've done or discussed everything that there is to do or is to discuss. Because there might be some new possibilities. Right? That you can be opened up to. And that's the wonderful thing, and the reason God tells us to get counsel is because our minds get locked into a few possibilities, right? And we get closed off to the fact that it's either this or this, and there might be five or 10 other possibilities. And if you get opened up to what those other possibilities are, that might be your point of agreement. Okay? So I would just encourage you, again, get some counsel. That would probably be the best way to go about it.
Because when it boils down to it, our kids I always saw it as a very heavy responsibility. You can't take it lightly. They're God's gifts to us, and He trusted us enough without gift to raise them to follow after Him. And so you have to kind of, again, go back to what is most important to you.
You lived in our home for 10 or 11 months. Do you want to comment on anything in terms of like what we said today and how you saw it lived out, or was it different? Huh? Or not lived out? I mean, you just tell me what you saw.
Finally, I get my opportunity.
You get your opportunity.
I'm just kidding. No.
And how you saw it play out and what,
Sure.
like the results of it. Just your
Sure.
perspective.
Yeah, actually, interesting enough, when I lived there, when I was going to move in.
How long ago was this?
9 years ago.
So 11, 9, and 7 were the ages of our kids.
Yeah. So the thought I had when I found out I was going to be moving in with them was, oh crap. Because I was in an internship program and there were guidelines and boundaries and things I knew that, man, there's no way I'm going to get away with now. So secondly, I thought, I wonder what they're like at home. What am I going to find out about them now that everyone else doesn't get to see? This is going to be interesting. And after 11 months of it, I left and literally said, and I told a few people, they're literally the same people. There's zero difference. Anything I've ever seen anywhere, there's not one change anywhere. They're the same. Kids are the same. Everybody's the same. Nothing to see here. Move along. No stories to tell. And actually what I came to find out is that even though I was a child in a different sense, I mean, they were training me, I was living with them, they actually treated me, I lived in the funnel as they up at the freedom part. So, because of my age. So they weren't highly restrictive. If I broke a rule or anything like that, it was simply a discussion about consequences. They were never heavy-handed or anything like that. And so I actually found that I lived 3 places during my 2-year internship with 3 different families. The least restrictive, or least, hovering is kind of a bad term, but if you know what I mean, they were the least of all of them. I had the most freedom living with Pastor Ryan and Pastor Jennifer, you know, that fear that you have, and a lot of people, this assumption they have. So, yeah, that would be kind of my thoughts.
Did you observe, like, literally, have we ever had this discussion before?
Nope.
Okay. Did you observe anything about our kids or parenting or anything else that maybe we didn't cover today, or that?
Yeah, actually, there is one thing. They never disciplined them. They never carried out the discipline. Like, I knew when they'd get in trouble. But one of the things I always noticed that they did, because I always wanted to see, I always wanted to see them get disciplined.
He wanted y'all to be embarrassed.
Well, they just get done. One of them, Caleb, would just get done like punching me in the head when I wasn't looking or something like that. So I'd be like, oh, this is going to be good. So, one of the things I always notice is I never got to see the discipline or the discussion of like them, the consequences. They would never embarrass them. Like, so I always noticed like there was never an element of embarrassment because they never did it out in front of anyone. I would know they were in trouble because there'd be a discussion, okay, now we're going to go back to a room and talk about it. But that kind of always stuck with me, that the kids never had to deal with embarrassment, and I never got to see it. And it was, they just always did it. It was always a serious manner that wasn't done out in front of people. I always thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I would say that the reason for that was intentional, because discipline is never about shame. Like, we do not want to shame our kids. God did everything he could do to remove shame from us, right? So discipline and correction, if we do it with shame, it will have a counterproductive result, right? Candidly, and my parents will tell you, a statement I heard out of my mom's mouth was, if you misbehave or embarrass me in public, I'm going to embarrass you in public. Okay? So, did I ever misbehave? Oh, I was really scared to misbehave. Period. And it wasn't because I wanted to be a good kid. It's because I was scared. All right. However, there were some times when I did, cross their line out in public, and I found out about it in public, and that experience was pretty shameful. I mean, it was like, okay, I recognize I did bad, but you didn't have to do it that way. So we were intentional not to be that way. So did they misbehave in public? Yes, they did. And guess what? I had to make trips to the car when they were toddlers, which was work and frustrating, but it was worth the end result, right? So I think we can characterize our relationship as friends now. Would you do that? Would you say that? You don't have to say it that way if you don't want to. You can tell the truth. Yeah. And definitely moving that way with her. And to me, one of the... Should I say it? Huh? Okay, I wanted to make sure I should say this. So one of the tells to me about the quality of the relationship was, I don't remember when it was, it's been sometime in the last year or more, something came up about, in our discussion about weddings and who you would have in your wedding. And when my son... Yeah.
I'm going to say it for him. When Caleb looked at him and basically told him he wanted him to be his best man in the wedding because of the relationship that they have. And again, girls, I'm not going to cry or expect that from y'all.
And he may change his mind between now and then. That's
And he
cool.
may.
That's cool. He has the freedom to do that.
We have
And
each other.
you have each other. That's right. Yeah, so anyway, I think to me that was like, it was a wow moment. Like we worked towards being friends. And for him to even think that way at this age said, thank you, Jesus, somehow. We're starting to see the reward of our labor, right? So that's... Father, thank you for this time that we've had together with these people. I just pray that anything we've shared will help set a foundation so that we can raise powerful kids in the kingdom that have influence in the earth. And so we just thank you for this time together. I bless parents today. I speak peace over homes. I speak peace over families. I pray that this would open doors for parents to come into unity so they can raise powerful children, and so that children that honor you, live for you, and walk out their purpose. We thank you and give you praise. In Jesus' name, everybody said...